Hey everyone, and welcome back to Not That Deep. Dad, go ahead.
Hello, Dana.
Talk louder.
It's amazing to be part of this with you now today.
Louder.
Louder? How's that? Is that loud enough?
Normal. Okay, this is our second test. Dad.
Dana, will I pass the test this time?
Okay, hold on. Maybe you're being too loud.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of Not That Deep.
Ooh.
I have a very special guest here today, one who really needs no introduction, but I'll give him one anyways. It is my dad, who is kind of a bald Howard Stern. I have already asked him to refrain from making noises, and I don't mean like woo, yeehaw. Like, I feel like all dads just make annoying noises. Like, all dads breathe a little bit too loud. All dads smack their lips a little bit too loud, and they like hum, and it's always something. Like, sometimes I can't even look at him when he eats, but he is an icon. My dad is my number one support. Dad, like, I could hear that, like your saliva.
I was just checking to see if there was an example you wanted to give, so there it goes.
My dad is my number one supporter in everything I do. So the main example I have is my comedy, where every single show he comes to, unless I don't tell him about it, and then he gets upset that I didn't tell him about it. But I can't.
That is correct.
I don't want you at every single show. Sometimes it gets too much, and then it's like, who's the girl with her dad? You know, like, they got to know me, not us. But apparently everyone really likes us. So you're kind of a hot commodity when it comes to my comedy. So
I think we're pretty cool.
I think we're pretty cool too, Dad. So
my little apple is not fallen far from the tree, but you've climbed higher already in such a short amount of time.
So, Dad, I mean, welcome to Sirius XM. This is exciting.
This is cool. Very cool.
Who do you think, I asked your ex-wife the same thing, who do you think would be your like dream celebrity to walk into these doors?
Dream celebrity.
Remember to not veer too far from the mic.
You know what? I would love to like meet Robert Redford or Jack Nicholson, one of those oldie movie guys that played a zillion different types of roles and characters. Those are the kind of guys.
Is Robert Redford alive?
Yes. Yes, I believe he is.
Is he senile? Is he aware?
I haven't visited with him recently, but my gut feeling is he's probably on the borderline at this point.
I feel like celebrities that are that old should have a sort of money-making scheme where like they're just at their assisted living facility and people can just show up and they don't know what's going on, but people think it's cool. It's like meeting a pony, and like the pony doesn't really know.
It's like going to the circus. You put him in a cage, throw him some peanuts. You know, reenact the last scene of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid where he gets killed by 1,000 bullets.
No, like they don't know what's going on, but to everyone else it's so iconic. Like there's like a 4-year-old who meets like a little donkey and they ride the donkey. They don't care. The photos are cool though. When they get older, it's awesome. But like as an adult, how cool would that be to meet? Like, maybe it would be a little depressing actually to meet your senile favorite celebrity.
I think I think you would want them to be at a point in their lives where you can still interact with them, because otherwise you may as well just like go to a mummy museum.
That's true, but I also feel like a lot of people these days, when they meet their celebrities, they don't even interact. It's just a photo.
Yes, but as an example, at one of your shows where Jerry Seinfeld was kind enough to open up for you, or that was 2 of them actually, and we had a chance to do the Q&A with him, people had real questions for him. So you would want to delve into someone's life that you don't know anything about, because when they're that big screen icon, that's all you know about them. You don't know anything else. So it's almost like, you know, you want to ask them the kind of questions you're asking me right now.
Yeah, sometimes I get freaked out of celebrities. We don't actually know who they are. We just know a character that they play, and they fully just read from a script.
Correct. But in order to get that role, they had to look and sound and have the feel of the character that someone wrote about. I
That-
mean, think about it. Like there are actors who get certain roles, they get pigeonholed in a certain type of character type because that's what they look like. So therefore, we all assume that, oh, that's really who they are. Like someone like a Dustin Hoffman would be amazing to like get in, learn more about him because he's played every different type of role.
If you were to be cast, like based on your look, Dad, don't smack your lips.
Okay.
Based on your look, what do you think you would be best cast as? Like what type of character?
Oh man. Well, I mean, depending on who you're speaking to, some would say I look like a guy who's trolling high schools for 12-year-old girls, but that's not really who I am. But more like a mentor to youth, like a camp counselor, sleepaway camp counselor guy.
At 63, you think you would play a good camp counselor?
Yeah, because I feel the same as I did when I was 19, 20, 21. Yeah, basically. You got a problem with that, child?
It's just a very like cancelable job, but
it's like, but that's.
I think you would play a great like grandpa, or like
I so don't see that.
no,
for me.
like a young fun grandpa, or like a guidance counselor who refuses to graduate.
All right, it's guidance counselor, so I could be a
Like I don't think you're being a sleepaway camp counselor.
all right, so a college dorm director.
Okay, same idea. Like what's with the young kids?
Sorry, that's where that's how I feel. I connect more to people in their 20s sometimes than people my own age
Why do you think that is?
because I still see life through the eyes of someone that possibilities exist. Like there's people in their 60s think like, life has come and gone and now they're just like riding out the last round of the train ride, as opposed to feeling like you could do anything you want to do if you want to do it and if you want to go for it.
Okay, so when you explain it like that, it makes a bit more sense.
But that's look, that's the it's not. There's so many 60-year-olds who, to me, act like 70-year-olds. They're old, they're tired, they're unmotivated, they've got no gas in their tank. And like I said to someone in one of my Lyft rides this weekend, I said, people my age are retiring now. They go to Florida or wherever, and they say, "Oh, what time is it? Oh, it's 5:45. Oh, we need to eat soon." And I've never gone for that mentality. It's not the time that determines when you're eating dinner. It's when you're hungry. Older people.
You're making annoying noises.
Older people who are at that point in their life, they put themselves on a schedule the same way new parents put their children on a schedule. Mom always had dinner for you every night, 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock. So you knew when dinner was. So you knew what you need to get done before dinner time. Whereas I like living more freely and doing the things I will need to do eventually when I feel it's time to do it.
Right. There's two pieces to that, because like I love how young spirited you are and how like you're down for anything. Also, for context for anyone listening, my dad has a side hustle where he drives for Lyft and now he drives for Uber too. But so you're constantly chasing, I would call it like opportunity, but also connection. I think that you and I both crave connection. And do you feel like you're making up for something that you lacked when you were younger because you're saying that like 6-year-olds are not, you don't connect with the 6-year-olds. Your mom, my grandma, also always says she still sees herself as like 25. And I still think I'm going to see myself for the rest of my life at my age right now,
right,
when things are like really, really good. But I'm wondering if like you feel like reminiscent of times that you wish you would have done things differently or something like that. Like, what is it about your 20s that you're like, ugh, like I want to go back to that because it seems like you can almost lead this independent lifestyle where you can kind of do what you want, but society tells you that you can't because you're 63, right? Or
Right.
64.
63, little
60
stinker.
because you're 63. So society tells you you're 63, you shouldn't be going to eat. Stop with the noises.
I shouldn't be going to raves.
You shouldn't be going to raves. You shouldn't be staying up late. You shouldn't be pulling all-nighters. You shouldn't be taking edibles. And I mean, also a lot of that I would assume comes with having a partner who tells you that you should or shouldn't be doing these things. Like, you live for Mark.
Well, actually, I live for Mark, but above living for Mark, I actually live for my children.
That I know, but
Yeah.
I'm talking about in your free willingness.
Well, no, because I'm like Johnny Independence in both my living and living life, where I'm living on my own, and my work life, driving for dollars, is independent as you can get, and so is the way I work in the textile industry. I'm an agent. No one's giving me a salary. No one has to tell me what to do. I know what to do. I've done it for a long time. So it's easy. I mean, what the Lyft does for me is it just expands. Every time somebody gets in the car, it's like there's a new world that's coming into place. And I learned, like, I had a guy in the car this morning on my way towards the city. He was going for a test to get an insurance job. So we had a nice conversation, and basically, I said, great industry to be in. My dad did it for 30 years. He's retired now. And
I'm sure you didn't say retired.
no, I said he retired early, I guess is what I said. But he, and then I was like, what kind of music are you into? So he gave me a group that I had never heard of before. And I was listening to them this afternoon. Kind of like a reggae, easy listening, jazzy kind of feel. It was great. And that's how you expand your world. When you live with the same people, doing the same thing, thinking the same thoughts, your circle of growth becomes solid. It stays still. It never moves. You don't learn anything new. I'd rather jump into the pool and see what's going on and learn and mix it up with different types of people. And that's something. I digress for a moment. I was thinking on the way up here, I always have felt like I have like chameleon-like properties as far as my willingness and ability to connect with anyone in most cases, unless they like not interested, period. So, whether it's like when I was crossed over 42nd Street near Bryant Park, waiting for the light to change, there was a older African American woman who had put one arm through her little sweater, and then the other arm she's trying to figure it out. And at some point, I reached over, I helped her. I said, "Here you go, little girl. You want to put your sweater on?" And she was so thankful because it got done. Did I need to do that? Was anyone else even thinking about it or aware of it? No, I feel like I see everything, which is both a blessing and a curse.
Right. Well, you also are like very emotional.
Don't make me cry, Dana. Yes. Yes, more so probably the last bunch of years than ever before at times.
I feel like also like being a chameleon, like we can adjust to a lot of different environments and people. So it's nice. Like you have friends from childhood.
Yep.
And you're 63. So like that's so cool. Like I really hope that when I'm your age, like I have all these friends from high school and college, and like I can't imagine not being friends with the girls and guys, mainly the girls that I'm friends with right now. But like even like at my comedy shows, like I love that you take those opportunities to reconnect with like the most random people from your life. You'll just be like, "Oh, I'm going to invite Jeff Schwartz." I'm like, "Who is Jeff Schwartz?"
Yes.
And then he shows up and he's like the best audience member. So like you're a chameleon and you connect, but you also like attract good people. And I was just talking about that with my friend Matt, where I was like, you just attract good people. Like, that if someone is associated with you, like they have a good heart. Like I'm not going to second guess someone that you bring around. Like I'm not going to be like they have bad intentions or like
Yeah.
they whatnot. Like I think you have a wide breadth of friends that some of your friends are like big time Hollywood producers. Then you have friends that are probably working in finance, friends that are might be unemployed but happily, and like you are working a bunch of jobs. Like that doesn't matter to you. Like character matters to you.
Yeah.
And I feel like
Yeah.
both you and mom have shaped my view on that, where I think the same thing. And like my mom had the example when she like helped move a box out of the street, which was like such a random act of kindness. You moving that like sweater, I have like an example where, which actually this will lead me into another thing.
Okay.
That'll probably make me cry, but that's okay.
That's okay. I'll cry with you.
I was crossing the street. I've told you this story, but I was crossing the street over 2 years ago, and there was a guy in a wheelchair, in a motorized wheelchair, and he had a bag stuck underneath his wheelchair.
So
And
he couldn't go.
he couldn't
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
And he was in the middle of the crosswalk, and there were cars trying to go, and he literally couldn't go. And so, hold on. So I ended up helping him, and I was like, do you need help? He said yes. I got a bunch of other people around me to basically help like lift his wheelchair so that we could move the bag and then
Right.
he could be on his way.
Right.
And I don't know what he felt. There's nothing to be embarrassed about, but it was probably embarrassing for him. And then he wheeled away and he was like, thank you so much. That means so much to me.
Well.
And I ended up seeing him at my gym a few days after that.
Oh, I do remember the story. Yes.
And
yes.
I went up to him and I said, I don't know if you remember me. I'm Dana. I helped you the other day. He was like, of course I remember you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just want to know about you because like you're at the gym. That's so cool.
Yeah.
And you're in a wheelchair. So his name was Mark. So I felt connected to him.
Yeah.
And he expressed to me that he has had multiple sclerosis for many years and he's still able to live his life. And the reason why I'm so emotional right now is because my dad has multiple sclerosis.
Yes, I do.
And I can't imagine if my dad's independence and sense of freedom and able to look after myself, my sister, to support us in any ways that he can was taken. And so I would love if you could talk a bit about, of course it's under control and I'm so grateful for that, but even just like finding out that you have such an intense disease that could be very terminal. But I love Mark, my friend from the gym, so much. And I saw him at the bar the other day. I saw him at Wegmans the other day. And, you know, we don't have a million things to talk about, but I just think he also has a podcast, which was fun, but just to connect with someone. And I do think everything happens for a reason. So whether mom's moving a box, you're helping a woman with the sweater, I'm helping this guy that ends up being an acquaintance of mine, like I think it's really special. And so, I mean, you were what, 32? How old were you?
So it was 1998. So it's like 26 years ago.
I was just a baby. Your life had just gotten so much better.
Without a doubt. Yeah, and I'm sure that I noticed, like, I could think back to like playing cards with my friends in Rockland County during high school or after college or during those years, and feeling a little tingle in my pointer finger or whatever, which is like it's like you don't even notice it. You don't even think at that in your 20s that it means anything about anything. But it had gotten, I'm convinced that it popped when I was living through a year of massive work and stress trying to keep my business together, my sales business, my accounts, when Miss Brenner was about to become AGX.
That's his previous company.
Right. So Miss Brenner was domestic company. We were vertical. We did everything from making artwork to screens to printing fabric, selling everything. I was at the height of my business acumen income level range for a bunch of years when I was there, and then a few more after we became AGX. But in order to have somebody buy the company away from the ownership that owned Miss Brenner to like unbundle us from the print plant and the screen facility, we needed to pull as much business forward as possible to show that we were still real, viable, and worthy of investment. And so I held on to like $8 or $10 million worth of annual fabric sales, which was a lot. And I did it, and I had great relationships with all my customers. I could go to customers on 34th Street and wander through their office and was welcome everywhere. I could go out to the guy in Pennsylvania and walk through their factory, and everybody knew me and I knew everybody. So I was in the bloodstream of a lot of my customers. The guys up in Canada, the same thing. And because of the relationships, which are the key to life unless you're a freaking genius,
which we are not.
Which I am not. And
we're, Dad, you know what they call us? And I don't want to shift too much, but they call us personality hires. That means we don't have a lot to offer, but it's always going to be fun.
Well, I had that exact same thought today, thinking as I was walking here, saying, I am so tired of the streets of Manhattan during rush hour and the way the homeless people have come out of the background and now we're in the foreground, and everyone's insane and everyone's uptight and everyone's stressed out. It's not a fun environment to be in the midst of. It's not a great fishbowl to be inside of. And I'm thinking, you know what? I'm at the stage of my life where, yeah, it would be great to be making more money, but I don't want the stress that comes with trying to do that. At this point, I want to earn an income that works for me, but I want to have fun. I want to enjoy it. That was always my favorite aspect. When I tell people, Dana, that, hey, would you like to come see my daughter? She's doing stand-up comedy at the show. It's like, oh, if she's your daughter, she must be funny. So people must think I'm funny at times.
Of course.
That's like part of what I add to my sales world. That's one of the bullets in my gun is my humor. And I'm convinced that humor is your long-term everyday lifesaver, because you can't always go to the gym. You can't always like in some bad movies, or some guy is stressed out on a sales floor and then he goes off to the side, does 100 push-ups. I'm not doing that to relieve my stress.
You can't always snort cocaine. Sometimes you can't.
Damn.
But sometimes you just humor is what brings people together. But
right.
and
it disarms people. It makes them.
It does disarm people.
Yeah.
I have never started a sales pitch before I can make someone laugh, because I'm not comfortable until I know that you can laugh, because unfortunately it's just not that deep. And I say that not as akin to my podcast, but that is where this comes from is it's just not that deep at the end of the day. What we're doing, we're just robots in a video game, is how sometimes I feel about my life. Are you ever walking the street and you're like, is this real?
Yeah.
I think I'm in a simulation.
Yeah.
And then shit happens in life and you're like, oh, this is real. This is serious. But if we can just laugh a little bit more, it makes it easier. But
people that act like robots and are very cold and dry, those are the ones where some of my chameleon qualities don't always get me up and over the hump, because I don't relate to those people. Like, you're too stoic, you're too serious.
Yeah, but maybe something made them that way. That's the thing where
Correct.
You can understand that too, is something probably happened and they need to act that way as a form of protection or something.
Well, yes, correct. So then you give them benefit doubt. The same way you give a store clerk or a restaurant waitress or anyone in the service industry that you interact kind of like randomly with, and you come across them and you could tell that they're on edge and they overreact to something. So you have two choices. You can then try to escalate it, or give them a little room to like come back from that.
They're just doing their job.
Right, but they also, it's, you know, somebody has a shitty morning, and then you interact with them and they are nasty to you, and then you go be nasty to the next person you interact with, and all of a sudden it's like pass it on, pass it on, pass it on, and it's all negative energy spiraling in the wrong direction. Where if you're nicer, then if you hold the door for somebody, or if you say thank you, or you do anything kind, that person is much more likely to be kinder in their next odd interaction. And so it just like passes along that way. And that way it's a kinder world. And that's kind of what's missing right now, I feel like, in general. But that's a whole bigger story.
I know. I want you to go back to what you were saying. So you were doing really well in work. Everyone knew you. And that, I'm assuming, is leading to stress, which you think triggered.
Right. So a year of knowing that the company was likely to be either closed or had to be sold or bought up the sales and design side. I held on to the business, and to me, the connection, the connection is that it felt like, you know, December in college. You know, after you come back from Thanksgiving, all you do is study, study, study. You've got to finish your papers. And then you've got a week or whatever of exams, and you're pulling all-nighters, and you're taking your speed and doing whatever you need. And then when you're finally done, boom, you go celebrate, and then you crash. And so after a year of like holding up this business and keeping everything going, when it was done and the company transitioned into a new company, then I crashed. And my crash was the MS sprouted up. So I felt like one day coming out of the bus terminal, walking to the office, I felt like I had 18 pairs of wet socks on in my shoes. It was squishy, weird feeling. I felt odd feelings up my back. And then that week I took a guy who was in town, a QC guy from Jansen's Swimwear, Portland, Oregon. We went to Frankie and Johnny's in West 45th Street for a steakhouse dinner, and walking down the stairs, my right arm seized up like as if I had a cast on it. And it's like, what is going on there? I didn't tell my arm to like do that. So when I went home that night, I said, Jill, this is what happened at work today. I think, you know, men are very bad about dealing with minor medical issues. This one jumped past my ignore level even for me.
Right. You weren't like, I think I have a sinus infection.
Yeah. It's like, no. So like, is it heart or is it brain? It's like, doesn't feel like anything to do with my blood system or my heart. So went to one neurologist in Summit, who was a very nice doctor, but he had like 35 MS patients. And we ended up, he tapped my knees and my joints and did all that kind of stuff. And he listened to me and he's like, okay, sounds like what I think it is. Then I got an MRI done. And that also was proof that some things had happened inside my brain with the myelin coating sheaths eroding. And so you had like little nerves that were like open, like an open wire, shooting out little messages to parts of your body that were not true, but the body acted like it was true. And I also did a spinal tap, which was no big deal. Most people hate those things. I was like, whatever, nothing, doesn't hurt. And then by the time he was done with all his tests, I felt all my symptoms had chilled out. So he's like, oh, you could take drugs, but you don't need to until it happens again. And then I went to go see a doctor who has 500 MS patients. That was recommended by Pamela, skater girl. And she confirmed everything that the first doctor said. And then She gave me a VHS tape. Remember VHS tapes?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Rugrats one,
Exactly.
the orange one.
Exactly.
That's what I remember.
This one was less ruggier, more rattier. And Mom and I watched it together in our little den room with the heated floor before we blew it out years later. And we laughed and we cried because it was a video showing a person, making up the medical mixture and eventually giving themselves a shot via syringe every day of their lives. I'm like, this is hysterical. It's enough that I have to brush my teeth twice a day. You think I'm going to give myself a shot every day? Like, no, thank you. So I didn't do anything with that. And then 6 months later, in November of that year, my eyes went haywire and everything was blurry from most distances. Now, I still went to work that day. And I've realized I can only see the computer from an exact certain distance. And then I made an appointment to go see the better neurologist. But in the meantime, I went to see an eye doctor in the town of Westfield, a fine little town. And I didn't tell him that I had been diagnosed at some point with MS. So I made him do all his stuff. And at the end, he says, well, I don't see, there's nothing wrong here. I said, well, if I told you that I had been diagnosed with MS, would that? He says, yeah, that would be it. I said, good. Just making sure. Sorry, buddy, but just making sure. Here's your copay.
And here come the cops. If you set him up with the FDA. You're like, you.
But I wanted to know. And that's the weirdest part about the whole thing. It's like somewhere in your brain, someone's playing with you. Like there's a little devil up there saying, "Oh, let's push that button and make something happen. Let's push that button and make something happen." But there's nothing really wrong with your legs per se, but your body is telling you you can't walk.
So the medicine, so you take a shot, you administer a shot to yourself every day, different parts of your body every day.
Yeah.
And what does that mean to you? Like just to be able to do that?
Well, one, because there's 7 injection sites, one for each day of the week. It helps me to keep track of what day of the week it is. Okay? Because Saturday night goes like in my stomach next to my belly button and front of the thigh, back of the butt, then arms. And that's all 7. So that's my rotation. I do it in the exact same order, the exact same site, each day of the week.
For 25 years.
Yes. Probably the most consistent I've been about anything in my entire life.
I've only known you for 26 years, but I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
That's
But I know that is like tantamount to me protecting myself. That allows me to do everything else in life that I can do, want to try to do, could even think about. I've met so many different people over the years that have friends or relatives that have been diagnosed with MS. And in most cases, many of them were younger than me and far worse advanced versions of it than anything I've ever gotten near. Though the vision thing was enough to like scare me straight, as they say with drug addict kind of situations. It was enough to like say, all right, this is serious, this is real. You better get that fixed and pay attention to it. But last 2 weekends ago, I drove a guy from Woodbridge or from Edison to a CBD dispensary in Woodbridge. And he walks out of the house with a cane. And he's like 35, 36 years old, but you could tell he's not going anywhere without the cane. And gets in the car, says, where are we going? He says, going to meet my wife at the dispensary. I said, oh, I love that dispensary. Been there once before. But more importantly, so we ended up talking, and it turns out that he has MS. And his wife is pregnant. And I was crying then when I was driving with him, because I was like, I can't even imagine. And I could have been me with you. Having a small child in your life, he can't work the way he used to work. So he's kind of like boxed into certain things that he can do. And it's going to make him harder for him to advance and to, build a career and income to support his family. But he hasn't given up on that. And at the same time, he has, even before this child is born, he's like scared that, he's going to drop his child, his baby, when he's holding them in, or how is he going to be able to play with them, and all of the things that everyone takes for granted, all the, being in shape, being flexible, being able to, get down on her knees and pop up and run and play hide and seek and all this stuff, that he's going to have a much narrower road of options of things that he can do with his kid because of his condition. And it's just sad. It's just like sad. It's unfair. And he didn't do anything in particular to get the disease any more than I did. I don't know, dear, where it came from. It's in your system. It woke up. Something woke it up. So it's so when I meet people like that, I feel for them. I don't go to the club meetings because I feel like a fraud. Like if I walked into an MS, peer support, I'd feel like why is this guy here?
Yeah.
What's wrong with he seems fine. Like, well, I am fine. And I consider myself super lucky to be able to say that out loud, and I hope I haven't done anything to disrupt the very calm apple cart that I'm living through.
I think that also like closes a loop on what you were saying earlier of like you just want to like live, because I think that you're very aware that life is not always fair. But although it's not always fair, there's always something to complain about. Which brings me to our final section of of the podcast.
Yes.
Of I digress. So I have something I could digress about.
Okay.
Today I was checking out of a store, and the girl got her manager, and the manager comes over, and he has huge gauges in his ears.
Oh, okay. Like those bones.
No, those. So it's when you have like those earrings that are like the size of.
Like the little circles.
Yes.
Yeah, they look like they should be a plumbing equipment store purchases.
It makes me sick.
Ugh, I know. I agree.
To look at these people, and you are making an active choice to make your ear look like a toilet bowl.
Yeah, or like a loopy thing. I mean, it looks like a cartoon character.
Exactly. And I don't. People are always like, oh, if you're applying for a job, so old school, right? You shouldn't have a piercing. You shouldn't have a tattoo. If you are on this earth, you should not have these holes in your ear. What are you missing that you said, I need to expand my lobe as far as it can possibly go? That is so next level. I've never met anyone. I mean, you and I are talking about don't judge people, connect with anyone. I am all set on those people.
Yeah.
What? That is so gross. Also, what if one day you're like, it looks like pizza dough. Like it looks like you can go roll this pizza dough. It is so scary to me. And I digress, but I don't think that should be a thing. I think that if you work at a piercing shop, that should be off limits. That and swastikas for tattoos.
Yes, I agree. I agree with both of those, because one is the swastika is a whole nother story, but it's just such a weird thing that you're doing to your body, and you can't undo it. I mean, tattoos you can undo over time if you choose to.
I'm sure you could undo a gauge. It's just I have so many questions. Maybe I'll have someone who has them on my pod and just ask them why.
Yeah.
It'll be like a 7-minute episode, and I'll just ask them why.
Like, what's wrong with you? What happened to you in your childhood?
Right.
This is what you need to do now.
Because there's no way they had a perfect childhood and then still at the age of 28 were like, I want to drill my ear.
Yeah.
So, Dad, what's have you thought of an I digress?
I am so digress challenged at this point.
I think that if you don't come up with one, that's fine. I mean, we're basically at 40 minutes, but I think you're going to have regret if you leave this studio without an I digress. Guys, my dad was having a really hard time, and we actually recorded it earlier, and then he started complaining about people like that were talking politics, and I was like, no, this is not what we talk about in I digress. I digress is funny. Do you want me to pause it?
Yes. So, hearkening back to my side hustle, the Uber and Lyft, which I've been doing for 5+ years now. I had a conversation with someone the other day, and we were talking about technology and the population explosion that's overpopulating the world, and all the waste and everything else, and how everything got out of control. Russia, oil, industrial revolution, pollution, and how like in these little sectors of the world they're trying to like fix things. I said to the guy, I said, what about these freaking Tesla cars that are supposedly going to be driving around unmanned? So whether it's my business that was outsourced to another country, or when I used to call Gateway Computer and I needed help, and some guy named Bob with a very strong Indian accent, how may I help you?
Dad.
Was in India. So my point is that every technology, things change, and it's somewhat for the better, but it's not always for the better. So I said, I feel comfortable with my side gig because I know that if I called for a car service and a car pulled up and I get in the back seat and there's no one in the front seat, there's no freaking way I'm staying in that car. There's no way it's going to happen.
Okay.
I'm not driving with a driverless car.
Okay, Dad.
I have no where I'm going.
That I'm kind of disappointed in you, honestly, but that's okay. I think maybe you're all contented out.
Perhaps.
It's like when your social battery dies. I think that with a little bit more preparation, you could have gone somewhere. Driverless cars is not approved for I digress.
Oh no.
So you've been excommunicated for today, but
no.
Dad, I really want to thank you for getting deep with me, but not that deep. And this was a lot of fun. And I appreciate you and I love you. And maybe next time you can have a better I digress.
I will make an effort to delve into the digression chamber, spend time there by myself, and come out of it a changed man with new ideas and new thoughts to bring to your podcast.
Yeah, you need to do better. But you did great until the last part. But that's okay, Dad. Love you so much. And to everyone else listening, thank you so much for listening to Not That Deep.
Woo, not that deep, baby.
Listen, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you're listening to podcasts on anywhere else, let me know. I'll be sure to shout them out as well. Have a great day, everybody.